Camilla Rhodes thought she had finally broken free from betrayal and deceit, but the letter slipped into her bag whispered of a secret more dangerous than anything she had faced before, a truth that could shatter her life or cost her everything. The Charleston air was thick with heat and magnolia perfume, the kind of air that clings to your skin and makes every heartbeat feel heavier than it should have been. Camilla Rhodes had lived her entire life in this city, and still the nights carried a weight that unsettled her, as if the Spanish moss hanging from the old oaks carried whispers too heavy to ignore. She was 36 years old, a criminal defense attorney, known both for her sharp mind and her ability to cut through lies with surgical precision. Her work had given her a reputation, but tonight none of her skills could save her from the gnawing dread in her chest. It began on a night of supposed celebration. Her firm had just won a case that many thought unwinnable, and her colleagues insisted she join them at a gala thrown in her honor. The hotel ballroom gleamed with chandeliers, and the clinking of glasses echoed against polished marble floors. But as Camilla smiled through congratulations and handshakes, her eyes kept drifting to one man standing at the far end of the room. His name was Adrian Holt, tall, dark-haired, with a presence that felt at once commanding and impossible to ignore. He had joined the firm only 3 months ago, but already there were whispers about him, a brilliant litigator, a storm behind calm eyes. He had a way of watching people that made you feel seen and dissected all at once. When he approached her that night, Camilla felt her pulse leap. He offered her a glass of champagne, his voice low, smooth, almost magnetic. "Congratulations, Camilla, you pulled off the impossible." She accepted the glass, their fingers brushing briefly, and for a moment she thought she saw something flicker in his expression, not admiration, not envy, but something harder to place, almost like recognition. That night was the beginning of everything, a beginning she would come to regret. Adrian became her shadow in the weeks that followed. He sought her advice, stayed late at the office when she did, and somehow seemed to know her routines without ever asking. They began to share dinners after long days, then wine in her apartment, then nights filled with heat and words she never thought she would say to another man. After the devastation of her divorce, Camilla told herself it was just attraction, but she felt something deeper, a current that pulled her toward him even when common sense screamed to let go. But then the phone calls began. At first, they were nothing more than silence on the other end of the line, a breath, a click, and then the dial tone. At 2 in the morning, her phone would ring, at 5 again, and always the same silence. At work, she found envelopes left on her desk, no return address, only photographs, grainy pictures of her and Adrian together, a hand on his arm, a kiss in the shadows, a silhouette framed by her window. Camilla's chest tightened with each discovery. Her instincts as an attorney screamed that this was more than simple harassment. Someone was watching her. Someone wanted her to know they were watching. She confronted Adrian one evening in her apartment, slamming the photographs onto the table. His eyes flickered as he looked at them, but his face remained calm. "Camilla, who do you think is behind this?" She searched his face for a crack, for a hint of guilt, but he leaned forward and covered her hand with his. "Whoever it is, they want you rattled. Don't let them, when I'll protect you." But even as he spoke, she saw the faintest twitch in his jaw, the shadow in his gaze. He was hiding something. The first death shattered her world. A colleague from her firm found murdered in a parking garage. The police said it was a robbery gone wrong, but Camilla saw the unease in the detective's eyes. They didn't believe it any more than she did. The colleague had been the one to first introduce Adrian to the firm. The connection was too neat, too easy, and her gut told her it was no coincidence. Camilla began to dig through Adrian's past. She found records sealed by court orders, fragments of cases that vanished without explanation, his resume polished, but impossible to verify. Every trail she followed ended in shadows, and then she found it, one single photograph buried in an old newspaper archive, Adrian standing in the background of a crime scene years before she had even met him. When she confronted him again, he didn't deny it. Instead, he smiled faintly, as if amused by her persistence. "Camilla, there are things about me you can't possibly understand. Things that, if you knew them, would destroy the way you see the world. Do you trust me or not?" Her heart was torn in two. She wanted to scream no, but his touch, his voice, the way he made her feel alive after years of loneliness, kept her silent, and that silence became her greatest mistake. The attacks escalated. Her car was vandalized, slashed tires, broken glass, her apartment ransacked with nothing stolen, only photographs, rearranged on her wall, photographs of her father, her late mother, and Adrian's face cut and pasted among them, as if he belonged there, as if he had always been a part of her family. Her hands shook as she stared at the collage, her pulse hammering so loud she could hardly breathe. Then came the night of fire. She returned home to find her apartment engulfed in flames. Smoke poured from the windows and flames licked the night sky. Neighbors stood screaming on the street as firefighters battled the blaze. Camilla's knees buckled as she realized everything she owned, every memory, every case file was being reduced to ash. A hand caught her before she collapsed. Adrian's hand. He had arrived before the fire trucks, his face illuminated by the inferno. "You're safe with me," he whispered as she sobbed into his chest. But all she could think was, how did he get her so fast? Desperation drove her into the arms of Detective Marcus Hale, the lead investigator on her colleague's murder. He was older, grizzled, with eyes that had seen too much and trusted too little. Marcus believed her. He listened when she told him about the photographs, the fire, the silence on the phone. He warned her carefully, "Camilla, you're in the middle of something far bigger than you know. Holt isn't who he says he is, and if you're not careful, you're going to end up like the others." But by then, Camilla was already in too deep. Her heart was chained to a man who might destroy her, and her mind was screaming for escape. The final act came on a storm-swept night when the city streets ran as rivers and thunder cracked above her. Adrian had asked her to meet him in an abandoned courthouse on the outskirts of town. He said it was time she learned the truth. Camilla arrived, soaked, her heels clicking against the marble floor as the storm rattled the old windows. The courthouse smelled of mildew and dust, but at its center stood Adrian, waiting in the flicker of a single hanging bulb. He told her everything, or at least enough to unravel her world. He wasn't just a lawyer. He was part of something older, deeper, an organization that operated in the shadows, controlling trials, outcomes, even lives. They had recruited him long ago, and now they had chosen her without her knowledge. She was a piece on their board, a pawn they intended to move. Adrian claimed he had fallen for her against his orders, that everything had spun out of control because he couldn't follow through with what he had been asked to do. Camilla's breath came in ragged gasps, her world tilting beneath her feet. If he was telling the truth, then she was already doomed. If he was lying, then she was trapped in the most dangerous game of all. Before she could respond, Marcus burst into the chamber, gun raised, shouting for Adrian to step away. Adrian raised his hands, but his eyes stayed locked on hers. "Don't you see, Camilla," he said, "I'm the only one who can keep you alive. You have to choose the right now." Her pulse thundered in her ears. Her heart screamed with the weight of both men, one who had become her anchor and another who had become her obsession, and the storm outside roared as if the heavens demanded her answer. But before she could speak, a deafening crack split the air. The hanging bulb shattered, plunging the room into darkness. A gunshot echoed, then silence. When the light flickered back to life, Marcus was on the ground, bleeding. Adrian was gone, and Camilla stood alone in the courthouse, her hands trembling, blood splattered across her face. Sirens wailed in the distance, growing closer and closer. She looked down at Marcus, whispering her name, and then at the shadow where Adrian had stood, torn between running after him or staying to face the ruins surrounding her. And in that moment, she realized the most terrifying truth of all. The game had only just begun.